Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we have another video from the bench talking about affordable reloading for the 223 Remington. I'm going to run through all the specs at the beginning of this video, so that way if you guys have a really good grasp on loading, you guys don't have to watch the whole video through, although I would appreciate it if you did and you also liked and subscribed. So these 223 Remingtons, I'm using the 55 grain Blitzkings. They've been phenomenal. We took about 700, 800 of these out to South Dakota, and we did a lot of coyote and prairie dog hunting with them. They were phenomenal on prairie dogs out of our AR-15s. They're very accurate. Compared to factory Varmint Express ammo, these shoot half the group size out of my AR-15, and another AR-15 that we took with us, they are also half that group size as well. And those shoot those very well. I believe these are like 3/4 out of my Rock River and about 3/4 of 1 inch out of a Bushmaster, both 16-inch barrels. Both are running right about, let me double check the numbers, about 2,900, 2,980. So not Speed Demon 55 grains, but again, I'm gonna take accuracy over speed. The brass that we're using for these are just mixed range brass. I buy this range brass already processed. It's deprimed. The military crimp is removed, and the pocket is deburred around the edge. It's not just swedged or deburred as well. I go through and I just double check the necks. I'll pull, they're all supposed to be already sized, neck tension of like 3 to 4 thou, which is a little tight, but it's fine. I'll go through and I'll pull, say, 1 out of every 20, and I'll just double check the neck size on them and visually inspect them all, make sure none of them have dings or dents or anything like that. The primers I use on these are a 7.5 Remington. They're readily available, they're fairly inexpensive, and they work phenomenally good. I'll prime them. I put an inside and outside neck chamfer on the brass. They're not chamfered after they're trimmed, but for the price, this brass is very good. The powder I'm using is a CFE 223. Again, consult your reloading manual on starting loads and max loads, and I always suggest starting 20% off the max load. That being said, with the CFE 223, this particular load is 27.1 grains of CFE 223. We're shooting an overall length of 2.250. With these, they're in a gas gun. We're kind of looking at high volume accuracy. My seating depth, I kind of tend to let it go 2 thou one side or another. So they could be 2248 or they could be 2252. I'm kind of happy with that 4 thou swing. Same as with the powder. This powder charge I have here seems to be pretty well leveled out in a node, I should say. You know, anywhere between 27 and 27.2 seems to be pretty good. I don't have a whole lot of SD or extreme spread on them. The one thing I will say with range brass is you have to pay attention to it if you're going to resize it. The reason why I bought this brass already sized is if you do not have a high-end sizer decapper, you will break decapping pins. This is head stamp PSD. These are good. I haven't had any issues with these. The primer flash holes are all in the correct spots. There is some that are stamped GFL. I don't think I've ever seen one of those have a flash hole in the center. So that being said, if you're going to size your own range brass, really be cognizant of what the brass head stamp is, and keep an eye on your decapping pin to make sure, like these ones here, they're set with a tension so that they're supposed to rise up if they bottom out against something, or just double check to make sure you're not snapping them off. I guess I should dive into one more thing about the mixed head stamp. Any other caliber, I don't condone mixing head stamp brass. Something like this that's going to be ran out of an AR-15 that we're looking at an accuracy of 1.5 MOA is acceptable accuracy, especially being we're shooting these. You know, we might have a 30-shot string. These things are super hot. The group's going to kind of deteriorate anyways. What I did when I got this brass is I pulled 5 of each head stamp out, and I loaded 5 of each with this charge and made sure that none of them had signs of pressure, none of them had any rim deformation, anything like that, and that everything was kosher that way. Because what you will run into, I don't notice this as much in 223, but you get into other things, especially like the 6 arc. The 6 arc, I will not mix head stamps. It seems like the Starline brass and Hornady brass do not shoot the same load consistently. So on something like that, excuse me, I make sure that I don't mix head stamps. But again, something like this, if you go through and test with all the head stamps and make sure that the accuracy is all going together with all of them, you won't have an issue with them. So that being said, I'm going to run you through the steps that I do on this. I do this fairly quick, fairly easy. I don't get overly complicated about anything. I use a powder thrower. I seat the bullet, and that's all that's to it. So let's go throw some powder in some cases, and I'll show you how I do this with the powder thrower. So this is just the lower end Lee powder thrower. I've had this for a long time. It came with a kit that I had gotten from my grandfather that he bought new a long time ago. It works very well. It is actually surprisingly very accurate, especially with something like this CFE 223. It is a ball style powder, and they are more conducive to a powder thrower because we're just measuring the volume. What I do with these when I initially set them up is I will fill them with powder, and I'll use my pan off of my scale, and I'll throw 5 loads in here, dump it back in, throw another load, and then measure it on the scale. If I need to make an adjustment, by screwing this in, will give you less powder per throw, and by screwing it out, will give you more powder per throw. Once I make an adjustment, I will throw 5 more throws of powder in this pan, dump it back in, do another throw, and then check it again on my scale. You know, there's a little bit of settling out that needs to be done with these powder throwers. Another thing you'll notice is I do have the handle in the upright position. Whenever I throw some powder, I always return it to the upright position, so that way it has time to make sure to fill that entire cavity, you know, when I'm going from case to case loading with powder. I'll go ahead and I will load some cases with powder. I just use these cheap blocks. There are better blocks out there. I believe I got these for free with a kit or something that I had bought probably 20 years ago. So I just use them. Again, there's better ones out there, but these are good enough for what I'm doing. A lot of my reloading, especially 223, things like that, I do it very easy, very economically, and I don't get too tied up with any of the semantics of you know, trinkets or anything like that. So for throwing powder, I like to just pick one side of the block to start on, and I'll come up here, hold the case up to it, put the handle down, I put the handle back up, I kind of do a visual inspection to make sure that the powder's in there, and I just move on through the rest of the block, doing the same thing. And again, when I get done throwing powder, I always return the handle to the top to make sure that it has time to fill that cavity back up. So once we have our powder thrown in our cases, it's just as simple as putting it in the shell holder. Here's our sizing die. Just a quick run up with the ram. We're going to double check our seating depth to make sure it's within our tolerance. And right there, we are 2.251 and a half. As I said earlier in the video, my tolerance is between 2248 in 2252. So this is a loaded case and ready to go. I just put it in an ammo can and move on to the next ones. I got about 500 of these to do, so I'm going to go ahead and get all the bullets put on, and I'll see you guys in a minute. So this has just been a general overview on an affordable 223 Remington round that I've kind of started reloading. Again, I took this out prairie dog hunting with AR-15s, and it has seemed to be very good. We hit more than we missed, I'll put it that way. Like I said, the accuracy on these, they're not match accurate by any means. I do have a 223 load with these 55 Blitzkings that's, you know, quite a bit more accurate. Again, these are 3/4 inch out of my gun. I have a load that's very consistently 1/2 inch or better out of my rifle, but it's not quite as affordable as a load as these are if you want to go shoot 500 of them in a day. These 55 Blitzkings, they're lights out on coyotes, especially say 300 yards and in, and they're phenomenal on prairie dogs. So if you guys found any value in this, please like and subscribe. I have more of these videos coming, more equipment, more loads. I have 2 rifles in the queue that are going to get reviewed. We're going to do loads on. We're going to go through, and yeah, so go ahead, please like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys on the next video.